This is the FitRoots podcast, and I'm your host, Aidan Lee. We are focused on teaching you the best of philosophy, martial arts, health, well-being, and business. Our mission is to build modern warriors who enhance their lives through continual physical and mental evolution, and then bestow that gift onto the next generation. Today, we've got Ameeth Ruparelia joining us. Ameeth is the founder of Physio Unlocked. His principal aim is to teach professionals how to manage injury and teach them the fundamentals of good, efficient movement. He believes that leading an active lifestyle and spreading positivity are fundamental to pain-free health and well-being. His fascination with the human body truly began in 2010 when he started his physiotherapy degree program at the University of Birmingham. With over 1,000 hours of clinical placement and a dissertation with Aston Villa Football Club, this gave him the perfect springboard to start work in the NHS on hospital rotations. Having a love for all things exercise, his passion led him to work in sports clubs such as Brentford FC and also Staines Swimming Club, where he has been a conditioning coach for the last 5 years. As a seasoned practitioner, he has seen many people place limitations on themselves because of pain. Pain is a necessary fact of life. However, people all too often let it take over and run their lives. He has learned that pain is usually caused by a lack of good quality and efficient movement. Whether you're a self-confessed fitness freak or a weekend warrior, if you don't move well, your body will soon let you know about it. The reason he set up Physio Unlocked is because he hated seeing patients receive low-value, recipe book-style, protocol-led treatments with minimal support seen in many physiotherapy clinics. He wants to change the way people think about rehab by giving them the knowledge, tools, and support they deserve. Most physios treat patients with injuries. He prefers to get to know a person, find out what drives them, and build a plan focused on their goals and capabilities. Seeing people break down their barriers excites him. Seeing people achieve things they thought impossible is what motivates him. He generally feels that if you move well and you are positive in your outlook, you can conquer many of the challenges that life throws at you. This goes for recovering from an injury, as well as being able to deal with life stresses. If he can teach a person how to move well and unlock their potential, everyone wins. Ameeth, welcome to the FitRoots podcast.
Thank you, Aidan. Good morning.
Happy to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on today, Ameeth. We really want to dig deep with the kind of expertise that you have and the way that you can help, particularly men in our audience, to either recover from their injuries, get fitter, get healthier, and as you say, get happier.
Well, that's what it's all about. Thank you again for having me on. I think it's really important to spread these messages because there's so much bad messages out there. So let's see if we can dispel a few myths today and help many people. So
I'm completely with you. We want to get rid of those myths and get around them. So let's start with some of those myths, because I think that's a big needle in the haystack for people. There's a lot of misinformation out there. They're not sure where to go, what to find, or what to do. So with your experience, Ameeth, would you care to share with us the kind of things you've seen, the kind of problems you see, and how people can overcome that?
Yeah, so I see every day in my clinic people coming through with injuries and ailments, not just the people that fall over or have an accident, those acute traumatic things, but more the repetitive build-up of injury that accumulates over time. Like those chaps with that groggy lower back, or that neck which gives them problems all the time, or that irritable shoulder. And what I tend to find is these guys have been suffering with problems for months, years, sometimes even decades. And they just place restrictions and limitations on themselves, which I think is just such a sad thing. You hear it so often. Oh, I've got this back problem, I've stopped exercising, or I'm scared to exercise, or I'm not spending time with my family, or I avoid going out to certain places purely because of fear, really.
Wow. So would you say fear is one of the central things that's holding people back, or is there something more mechanical, physical, or is it a mixture of all of those things, mental and physical? Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's always a combination. I think if we need to move away from this dogma that it's purely injury is purely based on sort of what you do, how you set your body up. You're purely a biomechanical thing. There's much more to it than that. So the often thing that comes in through the clinic, and people will say, oh, I've got pain, and they say it's because I'm out of alignment or something like that. And I kind of look at them and say, well, no one's truly in a perfect alignment. There's a vast variation of normal. What does that mean by being out of alignment? And if we take some of the most famous runner in the world, Usain Bolt, you'd think he's a pretty good runner, right?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's got he's not a massive scoliosis, but he has a scoliosis, and so a scoliosis is a curvature of the spine, an out of alignment thing. So if he can run a world record time being out of alignment, how much of a problem is it to an extent? You see what I mean? So for these people that come through and say, oh, it's purely a biomechanical thing, I think, well, actually, there may be more to it. What are you doing in terms of your mood, your sleep patterns, your general happiness, engaging in the things that you enjoy? What are your beliefs around the pain? Yeah. All these factors play a part. It's a massive, multifaceted thing.
Yeah, as you say, it's multivariate, and it's not just one or the other. Of course, biomechanics are important, but they're not
definitely.
And as you say, if you've got great mechanics but you're stressed all the time, for example, that's not going to work in your favor.
Exactly. This is very true. Very, very true.
So yeah, that's, really interesting to hear in the example of Usain Bolt there. Just out of curiosity, do you know what the degree of the scoliosis is? So the actual figure?
Of Usain himself?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't know the exact degree of range of movement, but it'll be less than 20 degrees, I would have thought.
So it's not a severe one?
Not severe, no, but it's still there and it's still relevant.
Yeah, no, it's a good example. Fair enough.
Yeah, he talks about it himself, actually. He says that he used to get quite a lot of pain in his back in his younger years. But then through training, exercising, getting his back as strong as possible, that's enabled him to then train harder and run those fantastic world record times,
Yeah, he's obviously doing something right. So
he's doing something right.
So that's interesting. So you also are a bit of a back pain specialist, or that's your area of particular expertise or interest. With that in mind, I know back pain is such a prominent thing, and you, I would assume, know a lot more of the stats and the things behind it than I do. But could you share some of those stats, if you know any, or your experiences around the back pain issues?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So we can talk about injury and anatomy, for example. So a lot of people that get back pain, they go to a clinician, or they have an X-ray or an MRI scan or something, and they'll say, "Oh, your pain is caused by a disc bulge or something. That is the cause of the pain. That's what shows up on the MRI scan. That must be the reason for your pain." But actually, when we look at the evidence and delve into the details and actually what the facts and figures are around who has disc bulges, what you'll find is that from the age of about 20 years old, if you MRI'd every single person in the general population, you'll actually find that about 20-25% of 20-year-olds who don't experience back pain actually have a disc bulge. That's amazing, right?
Yes, quite a substantial figure. Yeah, I would have thought.
Yeah. By the time you get to sort of your 50s, that figure jumps up to about 60%, and by the time you get a little bit older, that into your retirement years, everyone's got them. Yeah. So, and these are people that don't experience pain. So we often find these so-called abnormalities, which are present, but aren't always a contributing factor to people's pain, So that's very interesting, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think it's good to see the evidence behind it and what is causing people to at least think why their pain is there, and whether that is actually the genuine reason as to why it is, or if there is something else underlying. So definitely. With that in mind, obviously there is, or at least people experience or tout they're experiencing a lot of back pain. Why do you think they get this pain in the first place, and what's the solution to it?
Yeah, well, there's again the reasons are multifaceted, but what you will often find is there's a change in someone's lifestyle or routine or pattern. So you take the example of the typical desk-based worker, doesn't do much exercise, then one weekend decides to go and paint the living room, for example. He'll go paint the living room and then wake up the next morning really stiff, can't get out of bed, back's hurting. It may then go on and not resolve for a period of weeks. That person will then go to the doctors. Doctors might order a scan. The scan will come back. A disc bulge will be present, and then all of a sudden, you've got this person who thinks their pain is being caused by a disc bulge, when actually it's probably the fact that they've just gone and painted the living room, which is quite a lot of exercise for someone who doesn't normally do that exercise, and that's actually the reason. So it's not this thing you see on the scan. It's more the fact that they've changed their habit, or they've changed their behavior. They've changed their loading pattern.
What do you mean by that? Can you just explain that for people?
Okay, yeah, sure. So if you've got a relatively inactive person, all of a sudden they do something very, very active, their body, their muscles, their joints won't necessarily be able to cope with that increase in activity at that moment in time. It comes down to conditioning at the end of the day. If you're not used to doing an activity, your body's going to struggle.
It's too much too soon.
It's too much too soon. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So is the ultimate crux there that people should be in a base level of conditioning, so that when they go and do something, whether it be painting the living room or actually something intentionally active, like training, for example, that they won't experience these kind of injuries?
Yes, I think so. You need to take things on a graduated take things progress things gradually. Sorry, get my words out. So it's like when people pick up and do like a half marathon, you don't suddenly go and run 13 miles, do you? You start with, right, I'm going to start with 1 mile and then progress to 2, 3. I might do a little bit of interval training. I might do a little bit of hill sprints to get the running form and technique. I might do a bit of tempo running, over a period of months, So you gradually get your body used to the activities you place upon it. It's a gradual progression. And it does have to be done gradually. Even if it's something like painting the living room, okay, no one's going to work up to painting the living room. But actually what you might find is useful is doing things in blocks, so sort of 2-hourly blocks. I'm going to do a bit of activity for a couple of hours, take a little bit of a rest for an hour, come back to it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I guess it's looking at it from the whole perspective, because you didn't get to that inactive, unhealthy state overnight. You're not going to suddenly get out of it overnight. So what can you do to get yourself into a healthy state of mind and body? And that will take some extra work to build yourself back up.
Yes, definitely. It's just about being sensible, really. Understanding what you want to do in life, what you get value from, and then putting the groundwork in so you're able to do it.
Wonderful. So you've obviously mentioned there, that's a great tip, is building up and, building up gradually to what it is you want to achieve, or your goals in training or whatever it might be. How about some other valuable tips for people who are experiencing back pain or general pain throughout the body? How can they get rid of that and get themselves into a healthier state?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a very good question. It's so broad as well. So we can take it from a number of different aspects. So if we take a look at the pure biomechanical side of things, that graduated loading is the way forward. So being generally active, getting a regular amount of exercise in, every week is a good thing. The NHS guidelines is 30 minutes of activity 5 days a week, which actually is pretty easy to do when you think about it, but so many people neglect it. So having that baseline level of physicality, you should be able to bend down, touch your toes. You should be able to get yourself off the floor, up and down the stairs without getting out of breath. Those, basic things you should be able to do comfortably. if you're experiencing pain and are, in a flare-up of pain, as we call it, then you might think, right, what are the sensible things I need to do? I need to reduce my activities for that short period of time. So reduce what I'm doing slightly, but keeping active, keeping moving. You might try simple techniques, such as getting some heat into the back. So hot water bottles, wheat bags, something like that. Nice and easy things you can do. Take part in a stretching regime, get those muscles open, get the joints open, get them moving, take your body through those normal ranges of movement. Because once the body realizes actually going through these movements is safe, your pain levels will go down automatically, So that's the pure biomechanics side of things. If we look at the other end of the spectrum, the more psychological things, the psychosocial things, as I tend to class them, if you have something like a really stressful job, for example, because that can be a big risk factor for developing back pain is stress. You might think, right, you know what, actually I need to take a step away from those stressful situations. I need to maybe ask for a bit of assistance and help with my day-to-day job from my manager on a temporary basis, trying to mitigate those stress factors in your work. If your stress factors are at home, because we all have those stressful situations at home as well, you might think, right, I actually need to get myself, spend some time having some mindfulness, some meditation, maybe finding some time away from the home, going for a walk, taking yourself and clearing your headspace. Because that's something that you can do really, really easily. Sleep's another big one I really advocate on, because if you're not sleeping well, you're going to be in pain. So Aidan, if you haven't had a good night's sleep, what are you like in the morning?
Yeah, a bit cranky. Yeah.
Bit cranky, right? So imagine if you also had back pain as well. Do you think your pain would be better or worse if you had a good night's sleep?
It will amplify.
Yeah, that's it. And that's what I say to patients. If you've got all these little factors going on, they act as little amplifier switches. So poor sleep, the switch goes up. Stress levels, it goes up. All these little things. So it's about turning down that amplifier switch and getting your body back on track to a level which is conducive to you, really.
Yeah, it's a nice analogy as well, because you're constantly having to, if you like, battle with the daily stresses of especially modern life and society, which is not what we were necessarily built for, and to try and mitigate or manage those somewhat unnatural stresses sometimes will be a harder thing to do than it used to be. But as you say, it's still possible. It's just having the right things in place.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's really quite nice to do a sort of visual overlook on everything. So I did this with a patient yesterday, and it really made him understand what was going on with his symptoms. So it's a chap dealing with neck pain, long-standing neck pain, works in the airport as a flight attendant. He comes to see me, we have a look at him. We've done loads of soft tissue manual therapy with him, loads of exercising. And when he comes away and leaves me, he's fantastic. He feels absolutely brilliant. He goes away, does his stuff at home, and absolutely brilliant, no problems. But then a month goes by and he'll say, my pain is coming back. So then we just basically drew out his symptoms. We said, right, you've got this muscular, mechanical sort of neck pain. These are the things which make it better. What are the other contributing factors to your symptoms? And he turned around and says, well, actually, my partner's going through, got cancer and got some really big decisions to be made in terms of treatment for them. So that's a stress factor. Don't sleep at all. I'm getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep at night. That's a big thing. I've completely stopped my exercise regime because I'm too busy worrying about all these other things. So once we kind of displayed that and wrote it all down on a piece of paper, he could really visually see what was going on and what was contributing to his symptoms.
And that visual representation is very helpful for people who don't really, sometimes we can get quite myopic in our own circumstances and we don't really perceive what is happening to us in the way that someone may objectively do so like yourself.
This is true. This is true. And for this chap, just having that visual representation, it was like that aha moment, that Eureka. It's like, because I've been telling him this stuff, over the time I've seen him, but having that visually in front of him with little arrows and little stars and stuff along on the paper, it was just quite a special moment for him to realize and say, I simply get it now. I understand.
Yeah, there you go.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
That's a really wonderful anecdote there. 'Cause that's a great exercise that anyone can just take away and do right now. So if you're experiencing pain, anyone listening to this, go ahead and try that and see what's causing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I often say to people, right, just plot out your diary, your hourly diary of the day. So 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Write down the activities you're doing, and if that activity causes you pain or not. And then you can kind of develop and kind of see patterns. Okay,
like a pain diary.
Like a pain diary, exactly. Yeah. So you can see what activities your symptoms are worse in. And very often you'll see people that have pain Monday to Friday, but actually are all right Saturday and Sunday. So what does that tell you?
Dodgy jobs, yeah.
Possibly.
Very interesting. No, that's a great way of looking at it as well. And again, another actionable tip that people can try, going forwards this week and onwards to see what's really happening.
Definitely.
So that's really interesting. I'd like to also touch on, I guess, what would be unfortunately perceived as negative things, but within your industry, and I guess, I'm somewhat similar, not far away from your industry, but you see a lot of things being promoted which are probably not that conducive to people's health. I mean, you've told me personally, you see it all the time in physio, the sort of low entry, low level value that's given to patients and clients and customers. Tell me a bit more about, or tell everyone a bit more about the general culture around treatment for patients, and either what's wrong with it or what can be done better with it.
Yeah, sure. So I see it quite often, and it does actually quite upset me, because these patients have quite often spent a lot of money on certain types of therapies or treatments or whatever, or supplements or whatever it may be. And ultimately, those things haven't worked, because that's why they're seeing me in clinic that day. So a big example would be treating someone with, I don't know, let's take the example of lower back pain again. You're a relatively inactive person, and treating them with more passive modalities such as ultrasound, for example, things like acupuncture, things like certain types of other manual therapies, which for that person has no relevance whatsoever. That person will often be not just inactive, but someone who's just scared to move. And actually, why don't we take away those passive modalities? Why don't we chuck them in the bin for a minute and say, right, how can we get you to be that little bit more active? Because let's face it, motion is lotion at the end of the day, The body likes to move, it was designed to move. If you look at the skeleton, everything about our skeleton says that we are a species that moves and is active and moves through environment. So let's start to get that back again, especially for those people that have very sedentary jobs or don't do a lot of exercise physically, because that's ultimately what's causing their pain. They're not using their body as it was designed to be.
Yeah, historically we were designed or created or built, whatever you want to look at it, to do certain movements and traverse long distances and forage and all of these activities. And as you say, they are very active things for an active species. So that's really 100%. Yeah. So what are you saying, that basically the common modalities used by a lot of health practitioners are really beating around the bush and not getting to the core of the issue?
I think so. I think they're tickling around the edges rather than getting to the crux of the problem. Because like I said to you earlier, a lot of the times people will have barriers to getting better, and some of the biggest barriers are fear. you know, oh, I'm scared to do that. They won't say it overtly. They won't say I'm scared to go and pick up my kid, or I'm scared to go out and go for a 5K run or something like that. But in the back of their heads, they're scared. They're scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They are. There's an inbuilt fear that they think the activity that they're doing is going to break them or cause them more harm. I think I spend more time in clinics saying to people, well, I try to anyway, say to people, these are things you can do rather than things you shouldn't do. I think we very much got into this state in healthcare that we need to restrict things. So you go to your doctor, who will often say, you know, rest, give up running, you know, have you thought about taking up a less active sport like golf? Not knocking golf or anything, but you know what I mean. I get that quite a bit. Doctors recommending people take up golf rather than doing something more physical that they enjoy. But anyway, that's another story. So yeah, I think a lot of practitioners do beat around the bush, offer modalities which aren't relevant for them, those patients. And if you spend time just trying to break down a person's fears, actually they can be put on the pathway and they can actually fix themselves, as it were.
Yeah, I completely understand, and you touch on many things there which I've seen with my students over the years, but maybe just in a different context. Some of these guys, especially, you know, working myself, particularly with men, and I guess yourself too, they're coming and they're saying things like, not necessarily about pain, but, oh, I don't want to go swimming with my kids because, you know, I feel my self-esteem and lack of confidence, you know, don't like my body. I don't want to go to the gym because, you know, I don't feel strong, or whatever it might be. And as you say, sometimes it's also the psychosocial as well as the literal mechanical problems that they have, not just one or the other. You tend to find a massive combination of many variables.
I think so. And that percentage of what is it that's going on, the psychosocial or the biomechanical, I think that fluctuates and changes based on the individual, based on the day of the week, a lot of the time. But yeah, take the example of that, you know, maybe that overweight person getting into the swimming pool or getting in the gym. Why are you going swimming and going to the gym? It's to get fitter, to get more active. Why should you feel ashamed of that? You know? And actually, once you start to break down that fear and that negative belief, really, if you break down that negative belief, actually, you can make that big change in someone's life.
Yeah. And as you say, it's a belief system that's been internally created and internalized. And if they internalize it so much, eventually it becomes such a thing that stops them from really doing anything to do in the first place. So I guess really not internalize unless it's healthy.
Definitely. I was going to bring up an example of a chap I saw a couple of months ago. He's a young chap. He's in his 30s, IT professional. And he had this like neck and shoulder thing going on for like 10 years. And he seemed like a very, you know, intelligent chap, knew exactly what was going on. Then we started to delve into his history, who he's seen over the years. He's been seeing certain types of practitioners. I won't name the professions, but they were feeding him this poor belief structure. They were saying that spicy food was part of the reason why he was getting his shoulder pain.
What?
So he gave up spicy food. The guy gave up caffeine. He gave up.
I've not heard that one before. Spicy food for shoulder pain.
I kid you not. This guy was an intelligent, high-flying individual. You know, very, very intelligent guy. And he'd given up spicy food and caffeine because he thought it was causing his pain.
That's hilarious.
It was ridiculous. He'd been sent through for an MRI scan as well. And in the meantime, while he was getting his results, he saw me. And we had a look at him. And actually he moved really well. You know, he didn't have any real structural biomechanical issues. I said to him, to be honest with you, I think you're fine.
Go and have a curry.
Yeah. And he said to me, so you don't think the spicy food's causing me problems? I said, no. You don't think it's the caffeine? No. You don't think there's something broken or something torn or something damaged? I said, no. He said, oh, brilliant. I said, come and see me in a week's time. You'll have your results, your MRI results, and we can talk through them if there's anything going on. Came back and saw me next week with an MRI scan, which showed nothing sinister going on whatsoever. And he said, ever since I've seen you, I've been 80 to 90% better just through not worrying about it anymore.
That was purely psychological.
Purely psychological. 10 years worth of pain. Giving up spicy food. Giving up curry. Who wants to give up curry?
Who could do? I couldn't do that, mate. Honestly.
You know what I mean?
10 years. I mean, God, you can understand 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, but a whole decade of sacrifice of his quality of life purely because he was given the wrong, misguided, misleading, uninformed information.
This is very true. And he'd also spent so much money on ergonomic equipment, different types of desks, chairs. The guy had spent, overall, he'd probably spent about £5,000 just on trying to treat this shoulder and neck pain. Yeah. You know what I mean? When he didn't really need to worry about it.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, it's best. This is where it's always best. You kind of pay twice. You know, you're better off paying someone a bit better, like, you know, yourself, and going to see them rather than paying half and getting the wrong solutions.
This is true. The amount of times I see patients come in and they show me care plans, they call it, again from certain types of practitioners, and the bill runs up into their thousands, you know, over 10, 20, 30 sessions sometimes, and you just think, why?
Yeah.
Right?
On that
doesn't sound right, does it?
It doesn't, mate. It doesn't. On that note as well, I was having actually a discussion with Jasmine about this morning.
Okay.
I know you don't do this, but
yeah.
A lot of people in the I'll just say it because I don't care. In the chiropractors, osteopaths, physios, not yourself, obviously, but a lot of the people in these industries have almost fed people these beliefs and this belief system that they're broken and they need, the only way to get fixed is to come and see me every week, rather than giving people a proper plan to go and fix themselves, and ideally not to come back. Because ideally, unless you're going for massage therapy like I come to see you for, I shouldn't be coming to see you so often.
No, if you're dealing with an injury and if you're dealing with a pure injury, you shouldn't be needing to see someone once a week for months and months on end. I say to all my junior physios that I teach, at least 50 to 60% of your treatment should be educating your patient, advising them what they need to be doing. It's more the education side of things. Getting that person on board so they understand, number one, what their injury is, number two, what factors they can do about it, and number three, where to go from there, you know. Yeah. So yeah, you need to, it's more about setting a plan in place rather than, you know, like I say, being completely passive and saying, yeah, come and see me once a week for months and months on end. You shouldn't need to do that.
Yeah. So Ameeth, what do you think of these practices where, you know, certain practitioners, like I said, other physios and osteos and chiros, end up bringing in people for these, maybe an unnecessary amount of sessions, getting them to commit to a long-term plan when they don't even know how well the injury is going to heal itself or whatever it might be, or even if they need to be there in the first place? Is it dishonest? Is it just for the money? Or tell us some more about that.
Yeah, I think it could be a few things, really, to be honest with you, Aidan. I think some of it can be just a money-making thing, you know, especially in the private practice. People have got to put food on the table, and if there are pressures, I'm sure they'll find any which way they can to put that food on the table, which is a shame. Yeah, it's not ethical, and I don't think that's how people should run their practices, but I do think there is an element of that. But I do also think that's the minority. So I don't think that's across the board at all. I think more often it's caused by a lack of education of the practitioner themselves. There are a lot of people out there that don't keep up with the relevant evidence, that don't keep up with the research, especially in this day and age where we have, you know, social media, you know, YouTube video content. The world is changing in terms of your access to information. Years gone by, you'd have to spend thousands on a course to upskill and educate yourself, but now you can get educated, you know, through a half-an-hour lecture on YouTube, which is fantastic, which is spreading education, knowledge, and making sure people are up to date with research. But some people don't keep up with that research, and that's why I think people are giving unnecessary treatments out, really. Yeah,
they're not evolving. They're not really, they've become a bit stale, I guess.
yeah, they've become a bit stale, a bit old-fashioned, because the research is coming along very quickly. I mean, even just in the last 5 years, it's come along waves, waves and waves. Typically 5-10 years ago, you'd go to your doctor with back pain and he'd say, right, bed rest 2-3 days, but now we're actually saying, you know what, you need to go and move, right, maybe take down your regular activities down a notch, but you need to get out there and you need to move the back, you need to move the joints, you need to move the muscles, get them working. You know what I mean? Because that's how ultimately you're going to get better. If you go on bed rest for 3 days, you're going to get stiff. Yeah. And did you know, Aidan, that if you spend 24 hours immobile, so 24 hours in bed, you actually lose about 4% of the cross-sectional size of your thigh muscles in just 24 hours. 4% gone in 24 hours.
Wow.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah, in 24 hours. Brilliant.
I know. And if you think people that aren't, moving maybe as much as they should be throughout the day, all right, they're not completely immobile, but if you
it's still going in that, it's going in the atrophy direction. It's going
exactly. Say you lost 1% a week, say, times that by a year. That's a lot.
Wow, yeah, you'll be nothing left after.
Yeah, exactly.
So on that note of, I guess if you like practice and stuff, I think there's a lot of, especially in the physio, chiro, osteo, manual therapy, if you like, general field, there's a lot of myths that people, whether it be practitioners purport or even clients purport. I've got one in particular in mind, but do you have any that you know of that people should be wary of or steer clear of?
Oh, there's so many little things like, bending's bad for your back. No, it's not. Bending is not bad for your back. It does make me laugh sometimes when patients will come in through the clinic and sit completely bolt upright. And I'll say to them, what are you here for? And I say, oh, it's my back. I said, okay, what's going on? It's like, whenever I bend it, it hurts. And I was like, okay. And I see this person sitting bolt upright, and I say, are you comfortable now? And they say, no. I'll say, why don't you relax and slump and slouch a little bit? And they'll say, oh, that actually feels a lot better. So bending is not bad for your back. Slouching is not bad for your back. That's a two that we should, chuck out there straight away. Running is bad for your knees. That's another one I hear all the time. Whereas if you actually look at the evidence,
we're built to run, right?
We're completely built to run. Just purely from a biological point of view, if you a biomechanical point of view, if you looked at skeleton, you'd say skeleton with all the muscles attached to it. You'd say, yep, that's a running form. That's a running animal, But people will say, oh, running wears out your knee cartilage. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. If you look at the evidence, if you do a moderate amount of running, regular running, not, excessively, but a moderate amount of running, it actually helps to promote cartilage growth, helps to preserve cartilage. So that is a complete myth and complete rubbish that we need to chuck out the window straight away.
Yeah, and it's also, as you say, it's how you're running, and what kind of shoes you're wearing, how you're running. Yeah, if you're running badly, of course you're going to get injured. But
exactly. If you've got a bad running technique, well, that's probably going to cause you symptoms, not the act of running itself.
Yeah, it doesn't mean
stop running like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean demonize the whole of running just because it's not working out for you. It's a very human thing. So if it's not working for you, then what are you doing that's not quite naturally human?
Exactly. Oh, I went for a few runs. It's and I feel pain in my knees. It must be the running. Or maybe is it the fact that you haven't done anything for so long, or not strong enough? You haven't been, using your muscles, and maybe that's the reason you're getting the symptoms.
Yeah. And what else? Any other myths? Or?
Oh yeah, Tech's neck. Have you heard about Tech's neck?
Yeah.
Yeah, the big chin poke thing. Oh, all mobile devices are bad for you. It causes neck pain, and you'll see these biomechanical pictures of as you bend your neck through different ranges of flexion, the amount of load that is put through your neck muscles and your joints. And by all means, that's true. I think that's 100% true. The further you bend your neck forward, there is more load going through your neck muscles. That's a fact. But we all bend our necks every day. We look around. I mean, back in 50, 60 years ago, were women complaining of knitting neck? That wasn't a thing. So, this whole text neck thing, I think, is a bit of a myth as well. I think being stuck in the same position for extended periods of time is a problem. So if you're sat on your phone for hours and hours a day, or sat in front of the computer for hours and hours a day, I think that could be a problem. But I don't think it's actually the act of looking at the screens that's the problem. It's more the act of doing it for hours and hours on end without a break. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a catchphrase that's going around the physio community at the moment. There's no such thing as the best posture. Your best posture is your next one. So it's basically saying, right, you need to be constantly moving, changing your position up. Don't be static. Don't be stuck in the same positions for time and time again.
Yeah, inevitably, if you are stuck in that quote unquote text neck position for hours, of course it's going to propagate as something negative for you. It's going to come as in a result of pain eventually.
Yeah, 100%.
As you say, as long as you're not there forever, you've got to give yourself some reason to say, right, how can I minimize this, rather than saying I'm in pain and I need to stop it completely.
Exactly, I agree completely.
And what about, there's one other myth, I'm sure you've obviously heard this as well, but what are your thoughts on the whole back cracking and the pulling and popping and all that?
No, this is one that I get all the time. Patients will often come in often after seeing chiros, osteopaths, and certain physios as well. This does happen, and say, oh yeah, when you crack the back, that's what you need to do. You need to shove those joints back in alignment, And it's just a load of rubbish, because again, I come back to the evidence. If you look at the data, if you look at the facts and figures, as it were, they've done tests where they've x-rayed people before manipulation and then after manipulation, and looked at the the joint positions, and there's no change before and after manipulation. There's no change whatsoever on joint position. That is just there's no change in alignment. It's just a complete myth and a load of rubbish. So the thought that cracking the back or manipulating the back puts it back in alignment, that's a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
Manipulation does have an effect on people's pain levels, 100%. But it's not because you've popped something back into place. It's more because, well, actually, maybe you've done something to almost like, not necessarily a psychological thing, because I think there's a physiological thing as well, but to say to the body, okay, I can go through that range of movement. I can take my body there. It's a safe thing. The fear goes down, and therefore you're able to move. The fear goes down, you're able to move, and therefore your pain goes down as well.
There's a lot of psychosomatic factors involved there as well.
I think so.
An actual true alignment happening.
Yeah, this is true. And you do also get, with manipulation, you do get an improvement in range of movement. You manipulate, you move, there is an improvement, but that improvement only lasts about 2 hours. So it's a very, very, very temporary thing. I tend to think of manipulations as a tool that I use occasionally. It's in my toolbox. I do use it, but very occasionally. Okay. And if someone thinks it's, we're trying to pop them back into place, I just say no. You're barking up the wrong tree.
Yes, it's not happening. It doesn't exist, and as obviously but just it might be worth trying to explain.
Oh, sorry, Aidan. Can I stop you there? I think the door's going. Sorry, mate. Sorry. Oh, hello. Oh, package. All right. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Cheers. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, mate.
Very, very sorry. Sorry, mate. It's just delivery. It's.
You can't account for those things, mate.
Apologies, mate. Really, really sorry.
No, don't worry. It happens. Said it out. What were we saying? We were about the
alignments and stuff. So it's not.
Alignments. Yeah. There was a particular point I was going to raise. So discuss the alignments, and then
Yeah, we were saying it's not, you're not popping anything back to place.
That's it. Yeah, I was gonna. All right, I know. I'm gonna ask you. Let's.
Yeah.
You say 3, 2, 1. Then we go.
Yeah, sure. Cool. Ready?
3, 2, 1, go. So, Ameeth, with this popping back into alignment stuff, I guess you could explain a bit more about how that works, because the spine is obviously not just the spine, any muscle and joints. They're obviously being pulled by various tendons, ligaments, and muscles and fascia and so on to be held in a certain place. So obviously just popping them in and out or making that sound is not really going to do much, is it? Maybe if you could explain a bit more about how, if you were to be able to manipulate something, how that would work in relation to that popping and cracking sensation, and why it doesn't work.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's take the physiology. What are you hearing when you hear that noise, that click, that pop? What you're actually hearing is, every joint is filled with fluid, right? Okay, and in that fluid you have dissolved gases. So when you're taking that joint, through a large range of movement, those gas bubbles come out of the liquid and then they collapse, and that collapsing is what sound you hear. It's something very normal. It happens all the time. Everyone can click their fingers, right? Yeah. And that's another thing. If we say, right, clicking, you'll often hear people saying clicking is bad for your fingers. So why is it good for your back?
Yeah, it causes arthritis, doesn't it? So why are you doing it on your back? Yeah.
Which is a complete myth as well, by the way.
I know.
Myth. It's a complete myth as well. But yeah, it's just amazing how we have these dichotomies where someone will say, "Oh, don't click your fingers," but it's okay to click your back.
At least be consistent, right?
Be consistent. That's it. And I think trying to get rid of these inconsistencies is important in healthcare these days. So sorry, I think I went off on a tangent on your question.
A good tangent, mate. It's good to hear the background and as to why that works and how that works. So, Ameeth, I just want to shift a little bit more towards your thoughts on the industry and yourself as well. In terms of yourself, obviously, you're relatively young, like myself, and you're on your way to a very successful future and a path.
Yeah.
But just share with us a few personal habits or daily routines that contribute to your current success and will do so for your future success.
Sure, thanks. Yes, there's been a few things relatively recently, which have changed, which has helped enormously. It's going to sound really mundane, but actually the biggest change that I've done is making sure I have a good schedule for my day, my week, my month, potentially even my year. I plan everything. If you look at my calendar, my diary, it's scheduled. Everything is scheduled in, and that goes from work appointments, patients, exercise, social, everything is scheduled in. So there's a time, there's a place where I know what I'm doing. That allows me to then switch off, essentially, really. So I don't need to think, oh my God, what am I doing? I haven't got all these 1,001 thoughts in my head. I just look at my phone, right, that's what I'm doing between the hours of 5 and 7. I'm going to go away and do that. I think it makes me much more productive. It means I forget less, and it makes sure jobs get done. So I think that's a big change.
Scheduling is massive, isn't it? I mean, take you and I, for example, when we schedule at least a month in advance.
Yeah,
I'm actually thinking of scheduling quarterly because it just makes it easier. But
it does.
Hit the nail on the head, mate. Scheduling is such a massive thing for organisation, and this has come from someone who used to be super unscheduled, organised, the changes it makes, and clearly that you've shown reflect in your current success and also in your future one.
That's it. I think we don't always realise how important scheduling is, and I'd say if people out there don't do it and think, oh yeah, it's something I could try, but it's not that relevant for me. I'd say go away and do it properly. Yeah. Actually schedule everything in. Write a list of everything you need to do in the week. Schedule a time for it during that week, and you'll find your productivity levels go up massively.
Yeah, and you realise when you don't schedule, and then when you do, you realise how much time you waste when you're not scheduling, because nothing has a deadline, nothing has a parameter of time to be achieved within. And
there's no urgency.
Yeah, there's no importance, urgency. Yeah. And as it said, what happens when you don't schedule, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, this is very true. You'll end up doing things, like watching the TV or something, watching some crap on the TV which has no relevance to your life whatsoever, rather than getting something really important done.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're moving forward and you want success, as a lot of, if we're talking to the men on this audience today, for example, what do you want in life? You want purpose, success, achievements, personal fulfillment. It takes hard work, it takes scheduling. So
It does.
great tip. Thank you very much.
Another good one is obviously we've talked about this a lot recently, having a good sleep routine. So you have a sleep routine, right?
Yeah, definitely, mate. But let's hear yours.
Yeah, definitely. So for anyone out there that doesn't know, a sleep routine, I've also talked about how important sleep is for not just injury recovery, but also general health and well-being. If you're not getting your 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, there's a problem. So I know I have to wake up every morning at 6:15. So that means in order for me to get I need 7.5 hours sleep. So in order for me to get a solid 7.5 hours sleep, I need to be in bed absolute kind of latest by 11:15, really, for me to then get a good night's sleep. So I set an alarm. I actually set a bedtime alarm at 10 o'clock. So my bedtime alarm goes off at 10. That's when I say, right, down tools, everything switches off. I'm going to start my nightly routine, which involves brushing my teeth, getting my bag ready for the morning, doing a few stretches, and just doing a bit of deep breathing work 5 minutes before bed. Occasionally, I'll also do 10 minutes of reading in there as well. And I found actually by implementing a sleep routine, I get the sleep I need. I wake up feeling much more refreshed, and I get more done during the day.
Wonderful. It makes such a massive difference because it forces you to shift your productivity and focus within the hours that you're waking when you should be up, in accordance to the sunrise, sunset, our circadian rhythms, and also your general biology. When you realize that actually, that can wait until tomorrow. It's not urgent now. What's is getting a good sleep tonight.
Yeah, getting that extra hours of sleep in is much more important sometimes than finishing off that little bit of whatever you were doing.
Yeah. It has a knock-on effect. The next day you're much more productive, healthier. Everyone wins.
Exactly.
Awesome. So with that in mind, Ameeth, obviously we know what you're passionate about with what you've told us and shared with us today, but what are you most passionate about?
What am I most passionate about? Well, obviously, what I'm passionate about professionally. So things outside that, I'm very much an advocate of exercise. So I love exercising. I think it's a great thing. But I've also fallen out of love with things like the gym. The gym bores me at the moment. So that led me to take on some other more interesting sports. So I've taken up climbing. Obviously, we go climbing every now and again together, which is a great thing. So that's a sport picked up last year. Love it. Just completely different challenge, but also really good. Yeah, very, very raw. And actually, there was a documentary recently on TV, a BBC documentary about depression and exercise. I actually mentioned rock climbing is a really good way to help combat depression, because when you do it, you have to be in the moment. If you're halfway up a climbing wall and you're thinking about other things, well, you're going to fall off. You know what I mean? So it does help you channel your kind of thoughts into the activity you're doing. Effectively, you're doing mindfulness. So
being present, right?
Being present in the moment. So I think it's a really good sport and a really good skill. So yeah, love that. That's great. Obviously, I do a bit of kickboxing with yourself now. Now I'm hopefully getting in there more than once a week, which is great. Picking up those skills. So I've been doing that with you for about a year and a half now.
I was just thinking, yeah, how long? Year and a half.
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
I think I'm getting a little bit better.
Yeah, mate, you've come a long way, honestly. I would say so. And also, the key point here for everyone listening, I think, with Ameeth is a good example. Is Ameeth has got better proportionately because of how he moves. He's got good mechanics. He's got a good state of mind. And he can be present when he's there. He's training. He's focused, and all of those factors contribute to him actually increasing his skill set quicker than someone else who doesn't have good mechanics, mindset, and whatever else it might be.
This is true. Going to the mindset thing, I get really excited when I'm going to kickboxing or when I'm doing climbing or if I'm going for a run. I actually physically get excited about it, you know. And I think having that positivity and that thing, that kind of focus to say, you know what, I'm going to get some stuff done today, you know, is a powerful thing.
It's very powerful. And it's ironic because you and me both, I don't particularly like the gym myself. And I'm obviously a martial arts instructor, but personal trainer. And you don't like it and you're a physio. And, you know, doing actually more functional things, which are almost more natural, but also just more enjoyable. Really makes you realize you don't actually need to go to the gym unless there are some other things you want to add on top of that. I'm training a lot outside now. So I just take the gear and go outside. It's fine.
Exactly. And it's more enjoyable. I do say to patients, you know what, I don't necessarily care what you do. Just do something you enjoy because you're more likely to stick at it. You know, again, I come back to evidence. There was a paper out last year about back pain and what's the best, you know, exercises to do. And one group of patients were given real specific core stabilization, strengthening exercises, those kind of awful words that I try not to use, those sort of exercises, real highly specific. And the other group was asked to just go and take part in an activity they enjoyed. Who got better? Both groups got equally better. So it doesn't necessarily matter what you do.
And one of them enjoyed it as well.
And one of them enjoyed it, because I don't know if anyone's ever done like Pilates or done like ab work and floor stuff. That stuff is boring.
Okay.
You know?
Boring and in many ways ineffective, you know.
Ineffective, pointless. That's a whole other podcast, I think.
Yeah, we could do that next time, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So go out and do your stuff that you enjoy. That's the main thing. You know?
That's the key message. Go and do something you enjoy.
Exactly. Doesn't matter what you do as long as you enjoy it. Because if you enjoy it, you're more likely to stick at it.
Definitely.
You know?
So why did you get into your field of expertise? I mean, what was it for you that really made you tick that box?
Why? So why did I get into physio? So I've always kind of had an interest in the human body. I think it's a fascinating thing. I've obviously had the privilege of going into things like dissection labs and anatomy sort of lectures and stuff. And every time I do, it's mind-boggling how intricate and how amazing the human body actually is. So that kind of started from a very young age. So that curiosity, that interest. But I was also someone at school who was, it's going to sound a bit big-headed, but I was good at most things. So to be honest with you, I could have turned my hand to many different fields, and I think I could have done all right. One thing I was really good at A-level was economics. So I was really good at economics at A-level. And I thought, right, I'm good at it. Let's do it as my degree. Went to an open day at Southampton University, lovely university, you know, really nice place, good place to study. I went to the open day lecture about economics, and I thought, I'm gonna learn what I'm gonna do for the next 3 years. I sat through about 10 minutes of the lecture and thought, fuck this. Walked out and thought, I'm not doing this. This is so boring, so dull. I cannot make a career out of this.
Love it. So, that's the thing, man. You got to go with where you really want to be. You clearly didn't want to be there, and that was clear action. So love it.
No, I left the economics tent and then went to the physio tent and thought, you know what, this is a much better thing, much more interesting. I can't be sitting at a desk all day, you know.
And look at how passionate you are about it now. It shows.
100%.
Brilliant. So in recent times, Ameeth, what development could be your area of expertise or in general in the health, well-being, even philosophy, martial arts and or business worlds has excited you the most?
What's excited me the most? Well, just exercise in general, really, I think, to be honest with you. Like I said to you, I think finding something people enjoy and doing something regularly is important. So I think that's what excites me. Finding new challenges, finding different things to do, finding different things you find fun. I think really, really motivates me and progresses me.
Brilliant. Cool. With that in mind then, going more specific on the health industry, what are your general thoughts on the health and wellbeing industry?
My general thoughts, well, I think we've touched upon a few of them already. I think there's a lot of bullshit out there, basically. A lot of myths, a lot of things that are just unfounded, you know, not based in facts, just someone's opinion who has this opinion based on absolutely nothing. I think we've got to move away from that. I think practitioners and healthcare professionals, myself included, physios, personal trainer, whoever it is, need to up their game in terms of, you know, their knowledge, really, and also challenging the knowledge you do have, because sometimes what we know isn't always what's right. You know, especially in the field of medicine, every 10 years something changes, you know. Well, it's changed, so it's even sooner than that, really. Daily, yeah. As we, you know, get more knowledge, as we do more research, we actually find some of the things we used to do actually aren't that helpful. You know, I mean, for common colds, we used to put leeches on people. We don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? But at the time, that was conventional knowledge. You know, everyone used to think the world was flat. That's not the case, you know.
It doesn't have the application anymore, does it? And as you say, there's a lot of things out there, but it's one of those things as well. It's the whole discard what is useful and take, you know, what is truly yours. But it's optimizing the knowledge we have to become the best we can. And we all have our own biases, and particularly confirmation bias. So it's quite a challenge, and you have to be humble to get around that, isn't it?
Yeah, this is very true. I think you have to challenge everything, you know, all the time. Be challenged. I love having questions thrown at me, because it makes me reevaluate what I know and what I think. And I think other people should do that as well. Other practitioners should do that as well, because I think we get very defensive about what we do. We like to think our way is the right way, but sometimes I think we also have to challenge that and be open. You know, having that discussion, really.
Yeah, it's letting go of the egos and finding out really truth should be the ultimate aim, not winning, you know, me winning against you or vice versa, whatever it might be. So if we aim for truth, then we can drop that.
Exactly, because my biggest aim really is to help as many people as I can, you know, change as many lives as I can. You know, take people out of pain, show them that they're not limited, but actually they have potential to do whatever they want to do. You know, that's what excites me. So yeah.
Big goals, and I love it, and I'm exactly the same. A couple of more questions just to wrap up.
Okay.
More quick fire. Talking more particularly towards the audience of men now, but some general ones as well. What issues do you see that men should be thinking about?
I think there's ego is a big one. I think in this day and age, I think again, we talked about men being very defensive about, you know, what's right for them. I think we need to open up a bit more, drop our guard, essentially, drop our defensiveness, and just share with open, honest conversations about what's going to make you, what's going to help you be happier. Really, it's more the pursuit of happiness at the end of the day, having a purpose, having a drive to do something that you know, enjoy and want to do. So yeah,
brilliant. That's super helpful. Okay, next one is, what advice, Ameeth, do you have for the younger generation of boys? So boys who are coming up, and they're coming up into teenage years and eventually into adulthood.
I'm supposed to be humble. Same kind of thing, same kind of messages. The messages ring true for older men, younger men, and men in the middle. I think as long as you're humble, doing the things you enjoy, doing the things you want to do, I think that's all that matters, really. Try new things. Don't hold on to negative beliefs. Do what you want to do, basically. Awesome. As long as you're not hurting anyone, harming anyone along the way, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, or as they say, ethical, moral, and legal. So.
That's it. You're right.
So what else, if anything, Ameeth, keeps you awake at night?
Well, because I've got a really good sleep routine, it doesn't really keep me awake at night. So, or are you basically saying what annoys me? Is that what you're trying?
Well, yeah, if you know those kind of sleepless nights, we all get them here and there, you know, or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be a sleepless night, but what keeps you thinking? What keeps you awake at night? There's times you want to do something, but what's going on between the two ears? What's keeping you ticking?
Yeah, I suppose a big fear for me is I always want to strive to be better. you know, it's probably a thing I hold onto, which is not necessarily healthy for me, but you know, we all have our little things. Not being the best person I can be does scare me. You know, going into clinic, someone asks me a question and I don't know the answer. That does scare me. But at the same time, that gives me a bit of drive to do better, to want to do better, to to thrive and survive, I suppose. Yeah. So it's not necessarily a negative or something that keeps me awake at night, but it's almost I can use it as a drive to go forward. So I guess I'm putting a positive spin on it.
Yeah, I would say so, mate. I'm exactly the same as well. I think, you know, you have to, especially as men, we have to have we want a purpose. We're very purpose-driven. Yes. We need a goal, something to achieve, something to gain, not just to help ourselves, but also to help others too. And as we both do, we clearly want to make a massive impact, not just on our lives, but also other lives too. And in doing so, we are going to get effectively a little bit stressed about what we're doing and almost, right, how can we make this better? You know, what can we do to have a bigger impact sooner rather than later?
Yeah, this is very true. Very true.
If I asked you, Ameeth, or your closest friends, what your superpower would be, what would it be?
What my superpower would be?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
What would it be?
What a question. I'd love that question. I think I'd want the ability to travel anywhere I could in a split second. You know, like how Superman can just fly around the world and get to any different spot really quickly. I think I'd love that ability.
So flying or teleportation?
Nah, teleportation. I think that's cool. Just to pop up somewhere and be like, wow, I'm here. You know? And if I could do that Doctor Who thing where, you know, you can travel through the times.
I don't watch it. What does he do?
He can travel forwards and backwards in time, you know, so it can pop up somewhere in the Roman times or, you know, or wherever.
Nice. Like Back to the Future almost.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Just to see actually what life was like at different phases. I'd love to be around the times of the ancient Egypts and how they built the pyramids and stuff. I would love to know how those guys actually did that, you know, wow. And how much knowledge we've lost along the way, you know. There's so much knowledge I think we've lost. So going back in time to gain that, I think would be amazing.
I like those. Those are very, very cool superpowers.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to mention? Please share that if so. If not, share with us where people can find you. So your website, social media, and things like that.
Yep. So as you said earlier, I run a business called Physio Unlocked. So you can find us on www.physiounlocked.com. So come and check us out. I give everyone that comes through and wants some advice, a 15-minute free, completely free, no obligation kind of consultation. So if you are dealing with some pain, injury, illness, or just want some general advice, really, the option's there. The door's open. So come along there. You'll find the link to have your free sign up. So we can do that. You can also find me on all the social media platforms. So type in Physio Unlocked and you'll find me come up there.
Wonderful. And I would, guys, implore any of you listening to take Ameeth up on that. I see Ameeth regularly, mostly weekly, for great sports massage and massage therapy. And that's in person, but even on the phone or online, it can work wonders.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to speak to people just about anything they want to know, really. I think the more knowledge people can have, the better they'll do.
Awesome. I'm completely with you, Ameeth. Ameeth, I just want to thank you for being on the FitRoots podcast today. Thank you for your time. And it was really a pleasure to have you here and hopefully have you back in the near future.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.